Hey guys, how are we doing? Hope everybody had a good week. Hope you had a good Saturday, and I hope the rest of your weekend goes well. This week, I'm wanting to talk to y'all a little bit about the problems with public education. Now, public education is failing. I think it's hard to seriously argue otherwise, especially with all the confusion around COVID and whether or not the schools are going to be open and some of the games that the teachers' unions are playing. It's making kind of a mockery of the whole profession. It's kind of gross. So, the first thing I want to stress is the problem with public education isn't anybody's fault. Public schools are failing, but it's not because of the unions. And it's not because of the teachers. It's not because the teachers are crap. It's not because the kids don't care or the parents aren't doing their job. It's nobody's fault. You can't point to any group or any individual and say it's Trump's fault or Bush did it or Obama. It's an unfortunate consequence and it's an inevitable consequence of turning education over to a government bureaucracy. Bureaucracies always end up the same way, inevitably and invariably. They become bloated, top heavy, and self justifying. The purpose of the bureaucracy becomes just to maintain itself. It's just it's a feature, not a bug. So when we start talking about how are we going to fix this problem, none of the traditional fixes are going to work. I mean, you're going to have a really hard time fixing the bureaucracy by simply electing new officials. And we saw that with the deep state after Trump got elected. We hopefully became aware of how many appointed bureaucrats that are not responsible to the electorate are actually writing laws and actually causing a lot of these problems, just trying to maintain their position, just trying to keep their job. In the government textbooks, and you can check this out for yourself, when they talk about how laws are written, if you read the chapter on how the government writes laws, what the textbook says is that the Congress gives the bureaucracy a rough idea of what they want the law to do, and then the bureaucracy writes the actual rules. That's not how the system is supposed to work, but it is how the system works. So now that we've gone so far down this road, what can we actually do about it? Well, not a lot, to be honest. And the traditional fixes are completely useless. Milton Friedman was arguing for a voucher system in the 70s. Where are we at with that? Thomas Sowell has been arguing for charter schools for decades. Is that working? The city of New York is the city and state of New York are trying to shut down charter schools. Obama tried to undermine charter schools. In some places, charter schools are failing, and there's a strong argument that can be made that the reason why some of these charter schools are failing is because the district set them up to fail. Because if the district can show that charter schools don't work, then the electorate's going to start, the community is going to stop clamoring for more charter schools. Homeschooling, well, that's an option, but right now it's marginal. There's not a lot of homeschoolers. It's growing, it's becoming more prevalent, but pay close attention to what the state and the local school districts are doing. What you're going to find is that as more people try to homeschool, the state and the school district are going to throw up barriers to make it more difficult for you to homeschool your kids. The regulatory state, the deep state, the bureaucracy, they are going to fight to hold on to their power. And the government maintains their authority by making you dependent on them. Now, the government requires dependency to maintain authority, isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's some things that you need to be dependent on the government for. But it doesn't alter the fact that in order for the government to grow, they have to grow dependency. You have to be reliant on the government to provide you with services in order for the government to grow and provide those services. So when it comes to public schools, the bureaucracy is not going to give up power. The government is not going to surrender power willingly. So what's the best thing you can do? Make yourself no longer dependent on them. Now, homeschooling, that would be a way to remove dependency. But the government can throw up barriers to stop you from doing that. There are things that you can do that will remove your dependency on government that the government can't do anything about. The bureaucracy cannot stop certain actions by you and your kids to become less dependent on the government and on government agents. I'm trying to help. And this year, I'm going to make a concerted effort to provide the resources and information that you need to overcome the inherent dependency that we all have on government schools and government agencies. I'm going to try to do a weekly podcast. I'm going to do it Saturday evenings around sundown. And as the year progresses, every week, I'm going to explore a different facet of the Gateway Method. The Gateway Method is a teaching method that trains students to be independent learners. Once you are an independent learner, you are no longer dependent on a teacher at the front of the room telling you what you need to know and how you need to learn it. And I really think that's the key. So I'm going to try to produce these videos about once a week. They're going to be rough. I'm not going to spend a lot of time editing or cropping, or I'm just not set up to do the fancy stuff that folks are used to. But I'm hopeful that the information will at least be useful enough that you'll keep coming back and checking them out. So please, spread the word, like the videos, subscribe, and let your friends know. Hopefully this year, I'll be able to provide some useful information to move us in the right direction. I'm the Mister, and I'm just trying to help.